And hello, everybody. Let me get my screen here set up. There we go. Excited to see everyone on today's webinar. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Sam Byler. I am the CEO and co-founder of Boostpoint. And excited to dive into today's topic of everything you need to know about social media job advertising for recruiting in 2025. We're going to do a deep dive of how to leverage platforms like Facebook, Instagram, these social media platforms to attract passive job seekers to your open jobs so that you can find the best workforce for your organizations. I'm going to go into the in-depths of like the best overall strategies, but then I get very tactical as well because a lot of the value in social media advertising is in the details. It's really easy to spend money on social media, Facebook, Instagram, in job ads, but really to extract maximum value, like you need to be converting that audience into real candidates that are applying for your jobs that your recruitment team can follow up with and that you can actually fill roles for your open jobs. So setting the scene here a little bit, thinking about recruitment advertising as a whole, kind of traditionally, most people, you'll invest in job board advertising platforms like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, and the hundreds and thousands of other job boards out there. And those are kind of the main platforms that you think about spending advertising dollars to fill your candidate pipeline. Right now, we're just seeing a lot of challenges with a lot of job boards. One is increasing cost and then the quality of candidate going down quite a bit. A lot of this is because of like a lot of auto applies, bot applies with AI that's out now that candidates, have access to. I saw a report the other day that's like it's estimated that 20% of job board applies are bot applies right now. And so a lot of this, new technology around AI is making it harder to extract value from traditional job boards. And so, okay, what's an alternative? We've seen a lot of value in companies that focus on social media for another channel and another pool of qualified candidates for their open positions. And so this is what we're going to be talking about. And the way to think about social media is you're tapping into like a separate candidate pool, the passive job seeker market is what we call it. So the reality is that 73% of potential candidates for your open positions are categorized as passive job seekers. So this means like they're not going on Indeed, they're not on ZipRecruiter yet, actively looking for a new job. But if they'd be presented with an opportunity, they would seriously consider it. So today we're going to be talking about how do you get in front of that passive job seeker candidate pool for your open positions. Let's talk a little bit about like who is this? Thinking about Facebook, Instagram, social media, like who is this relevant to? What job types? What industries does this really work for? And what the kind of the macro category that we've seen is this is especially valuable for your high volume, like hourly frontline workforce, those types of positions, and not as great of a fit for like corporate roles or highly professional types of, if you're looking for, hiring a VP of sales or VP of finance, Facebook and Instagram, these are probably not your best platforms for investing for those types of positions. But hey, if you're, in charge of, filling candidate pipeline for, hourly high volume types of positions, this is going to be a very, very relevant topic for you. So, companies that we've worked with, for this, hiring HVAC techs, plumbers, carriers for USPS, RNs, medical staff. We do seen a ton of success in like the home health space as well, which is like hiring caregivers, CNAs, but then even in like skilled trades. like this is very relevant for like construction industries, mechanics, car mechanics. We've worked with brands like AutoNation in the past, to hire auto mechanics for repair shops and things like that. So those are a couple quick examples as where we've seen really really good success in leveraging social media for filling positions. So let's talk specifically like about platforms and why we're specifically focusing in on Facebook and Instagram today. We do quite a bit, or we've done quite a bit with TikTok as well as another one of those social media platforms that I'll kind of sprinkle in there as well. But the main platforms that we're seeing driving success, we've done a ton of tests across a lot of different platforms, but the main platforms are Facebook and Instagram that you can get access through the Meta advertising platform. Why Facebook and Instagram? The big thing is like this is where the audience is. Like if you look at social media traffic, the combination of these two platforms, Facebook and Instagram, they have the majority of the user base and the eyeballs, on a mobile device. And so that's why your advertising costs tend to be more effective when you're like starting to measure cost per 1,000 impressions, cost per applicant, and things, cost per hire, those type of metrics that matter in talent acquisition. That's where you see the best return on your investment because of the huge audience and candidate pool on Facebook and Instagram. So how do you think about, so like I always think, those platforms forward and then all the other platforms kind of behind that. You do have a lot of other social media platforms like Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, and things like that. But those should be secondary if you're not already implemented with a strong Facebook and Instagram strategy. Another big one that people think about in social media and recruiting is LinkedIn. Like where does LinkedIn fit? LinkedIn, we really see as the stronger platform for your more professional types of roles, your more corporate types of roles. And that's not so much going to be the topic of this webinar specifically. So that's kind of in a category of its own. One of the things I love most about social media job advertising is you kind of like get to have your cake and eat it too, with like you're generating qualified candidates and like for your pipeline, like the must-haves of advertising for jobs. So you're filling candidate pipeline, but then also your employer branding and your positioning. It really influences that in a great way as well. So like again, this is, ads that are showing up on the Facebook and Instagram platform with videos, photos, like you're really getting a great brand experience versus just, a job description, a text job description, with a ton of other jobs on Indeed. The branding part of this is a lot more impactful on social media ads versus job board ads. But you also get the benefit of really opening up your candidate pipeline and filling that at scale. And we'll talk about the details of exactly how you do that, because most social media job ads I see out there today are only focused on employer branding. And so like you're getting a lot of eyeballs, you're getting in front of a lot of people, yes, but actually contributing to candidate flow, that's where most ads lack. And it's hard to prove the ROI if you're not actually able to, connect this to quality candidates. One of the examples around that specifically that I have, we were working with a client where they were experimenting with social media. And they really believed in the investment, but they tried to, spin a strategy up internally with their internal marketing team. And they, started, I think their initial budget was $10,000 a month, like on Facebook and Instagram. So a healthy budget, but at the end of that 30-day internal test, they had about 10 applicants to show for that they could prove like, hey, from the candidate from the ads, like we actually got like real candidates in our pipeline. And so they were able to say, hey, we got like a ton of impressions and things like that, but actual candidates that we're going to convert into hires that they didn't really have a whole lot to show for. Versus they implemented the strategy that I'll talk about, going to dive into here in about 3 minutes. The results they found from this was with $1,000 investment, they were able to see 100 candidates come in with just $1,000 investment, 100 candidates, and a cost per hire of it was between $500 and $600. And so this was specifically this example was in the home health space in some really competitive markets, hiring caregivers, CNAs. And so the right strategy has makes all the difference here, if you're actually looking to produce hires from, a social media ad investment. All right, so enough of like setting the stage here. Let's talk specifically about the details. Like what strategy, what do I need to be implementing to actually get hiring success from my social media ad budget? I'm going to start out here by sharing like basically the anatomy of a high performing social media ad. So I'm going to pull this up and share my screen here. Here we go. And there's my share button. All right. All right, so sharing my screen here, this is an example of like what a Facebook job ad can look like. Now, again, this is like a desktop view, but over 95% of like your impressions are going to be on mobile. So think about this like in a mobile experience. And again, this is not organic. I should have set the stage earlier on this. This is paid ads on Facebook specifically, not organic. So this is not you going to your corporate Facebook page, creating a post and just like posting, for free. And then, only 100 people see it, of the 10,000, followers you have on your page. This is paid ads that's going directly after audiences that you set. And we'll talk about targeting here in a minute as well. But this is what we're talking about here. This is the anatomy of a Facebook ad is you have the ad text right here. You have a video or photo. You have a headline and a call to action right here. So I'm going to talk through the different elements of an ad and from a creative perspective, what should be your strategy for high performance. So first thing here, let's talk about the ad text. This should be not a copy and paste of your job description. That's super important. So how you want to think about your ad text is it's more of an ad versus just like a job description explaining the job. So for this, you still want to have some of the elements that you'd find in a job description. Like they need to know a bit about the role, but you really need to write the ad from the position of trying to pull the candidate in and attract the candidate to the position. So, highlighting the benefits of the position, usually in bullet points, is super important, and inviting the candidate into the job experience. The second thing is video is huge. Video is extremely important when you're thinking about social media. Like every ad does need some type of imagery, whether that's a static photo or a video. That's a requirement for a social media ad. But we've seen video specifically, this UGC, user-generated content style that you see right here, is what's getting the best type of performance versus like the type of content that is like not a great example for high performance is like maybe like a brand video, talking about like just the company culture, or it's like maybe a 2 or 3 minute video, like highlighting your employer brand like that. That's a great video for your career site or for, maybe posting organically. But really what you're wanting to do here is a 10 to 15-second engaging video that's talking specifically about the position that you're hiring for. And which brings me to another point here that's very important for your creatives is talk about a specific position that you're highlighting, and make sure you're highlighting that at least in the headline. Like right here, we're very explicit now hiring RN in the surgical unit, like being very descriptive versus like, I've seen some job ads that are just like, hey, like, so-and-so healthcare, we're hiring, or, like go specific to the position title in your job ads if you're really looking for candidate flow here. All right, so we talked about the text, the video, the headline. Next, let's talk about the apply experience. I see a lot of companies, a lot of TA teams like getting this right, the creative right, but the apply experience is where they're losing most of their opportunity. So I'll click here. All right, so this is an example of like what a quick apply experience can look like from a social media ad. So I click on the ad. This is a on-platform application or conversion page that you can leverage from a Facebook ad. So you can still like ask qualifying questions. It's like, okay, if this is a requirement to have a nursing license, you can ask that. Click continue, and then you could have other questions there, or you could go straight to the contact information where they're then providing their first name, their full name, email, and phone number, and then there's the terms and conditions, and then submitting is that them applying, where again I'll talk about the lead flow after that in a bit. But this is a very, very important step to miss. Actually, that example that I gave about 5 minutes ago, this was the key differentiating factor of like the first test they did versus the second. Is the first one, they were just sending people to their full application on their career site. So they had a lot of clicks, a lot of impressions, but the break in the candidate experience of needing to like go off the Facebook platform and fill out a full application, none of the candidates were doing that. Versus when they switched to this strategy right here on platform conversion, they had an influx of candidates. And a couple things here, like diving into this, a little bit deeper, is the qualifying questions are extremely important here when you're thinking about this, because it is easy to like just generate a ton of leads that are like very low quality if you're not asking the right qualification questions here. So a typical framework that we'll implement is you'll usually want to have your main knockout question, and then maybe 2 to 5 additional questions depending on like where you want to be on the scale of quality versus quantity. It is kind of how to gauge that there. But another note here on this quick apply experience is there's a feature you can turn on these forms is logic based flow, and we've seen a lot of success experimenting with this, especially the last 3 to 6 months, which has greatly increased candidate quality. What this means is like based off of like this ad right here, for an RN, a person having a nursing license, like that is 100% a requirement for this position. So if someone selects no on this, the next experience is actually going to be deterring them from applying right now. So this will guide them to their careers site where it's like, hey, this position might not be a great fit for you, but here's a list of all of our other open positions that might be better fit for you based on your answers here. So this is kind of like a auto qualify type of feature that you can implement within these forms that greatly increases the quality of candidate coming through. So That's a bit of a deep dive there, specifically in the content strategy, like what your ads should look like. Another thing I want to dive into here is, what does targeting, look like? This is one of the most common questions that I'll get from people considering social media for job advertising, is how do I target the right audience? There's been a lot of evolution, I'll call it, to the ability to target audiences on Facebook and Instagram. Like 10 years ago, the wild, wild west, even like 5 years ago, you could get very specific on, hey, I want to target a specific gender. I want to target a specific age range. I want to target a specific ethnicity, on Facebook with certain ads. That has been greatly limited by Meta over the last several years. And so targeting has been, we need a default to more broad-based targeting. I mean, I definitely agree with the whole move that Meta is moving towards here, because you could discriminate very easily on targeting, unfortunately, with the old ways of social media. So they're definitely doing the right thing here. But as far as, it does make it more challenging for marketing teams to get in front of the right type of candidate, because, like, for example, like, say you're hiring a construction worker, um you want your ads to be shown to that type of candidate versus someone that's in a corporate job, a white collar job. Like, your ads not going to do like any not going to provide any value in front of like a white collar type of position. So it's like, trying to still be efficient with targeting while not discriminating. And the way that we've seen, again, we've done a lot of experimenting around targeting, and right now what we're seeing is the highest performing strategy is, number one, like, geography is an easy, like, first step to check. Like, you can still be very specific in the area that you're targeting. You can go from as small as like a 15-mile radius up to like a 50 plus mile radius for targeting, or you can target like specific states or countries if you're like doing hiring for remote positions. But you can also get very specific on location. Again, minimum 15-mile radius for the employment ad category. So geography is the first step. Get that right. But then beyond that, it's like, okay, how do I target more specifically to the right type of viewer and candidate? And the key that we've seen here to get that right is focusing on the conversion, qualifying the right candidate on the back end of the ad. So, for example, talking about the on platform conversion, the quick apply experience, like making sure you're leveraging that, but then focusing on quality versus quantity there. Because what's happening is, based on the people that are applying through that form, that is feeding the algorithm, again, the Facebook algorithm at the top, as far as like who you're then targeting. So the ad goes through this learning phase. The first several days that the ad is live is like, okay, understanding who's attracting, what type of person is this ad attracting, who's filling out the form, and then it's taking that data, feeding that back into the top of the funnel in the ad algorithm. And that's really helping hone in that audience. So your audience, you'll start super broad, with very little targeting criteria, but then being specific. Like, again, the example that I showed there, like for an RN, like if we're requiring that question to be answered, again, only those that are answering yes to that main qualification question will enter the lead form. And then that's better quality data that's going back into the ad algorithm, that's taking our targeted audience from here at the beginning of the ad to here. And so then our ad impressions are getting a lot more efficient. um, a little bit of a mouthful. I kind of breezed through a lot of this. I want to circle back to a couple things. I always forget to mention this at the beginning of my presentations, but I am going to open up a Q&A. I usually like to run 10, 15-minute Q&As as a part of our webinars, where we can dive into specific questions. So if there are questions that are in the back of your mind right here that I maybe haven't answered, so far in the presentation, feel free to open up the chat window, and the Q&A, and throw those in the chat, and then I'll be taking a look at those here in a couple minutes, and answering some of those things. All right. So another thing one of the things I wanted to circle back to specifically is your content. So videos, like all this information, it's like, okay, Sam, like this is great. I totally get it. But how do I actually implement this? I've seen, talent acquisition, recruitment teams, they're usually a little underserved when it comes to marketing and being able to access like videos. Like, okay, sure, I want to post a Facebook ad, but I like, we don't have any videos available, and like images, like what, do I just go to Google and get stock images? Like, what are some things around that that can get you started in the right direction? So one of the things that we've been experimenting actually quite a bit with the last several months is leveraging AI in the creative for this. Because again, if you don't have access to a full marketing team, how do you produce some of the creatives that you need for your ads? And that's where we've seen teams being able to lean on AI has been a great benefit to actually initiating some of this. I'm trying to find my share button again here, and just to circle back on something. So this right here, like most people don't even pick some of this stuff up, because even AI in video is becoming a lot more of a realistic implementation. So like a lot of people don't pick this up, but this is a complete AI video as well. So this is an AI avatar that a script has been given. And so like this ad preview specifically that we spun up, we were like, hey, let's use AI for this. So this whole ad right here is actually driven by AI. We have an engine where we, throw in a job description, and then goes through a bunch of prompts, and then it spits out like a high performing social media ad. So implementing AI the right way, can be very useful for TA teams. Again, AI is a huge conversation. I'm not going to go super in depth about it right here, right now, but a general rule of thumb is like the intentionality, or the amount of training that you put in with AI at the beginning has everything to do with the output. So like just throwing in a vanilla prompt into chat GPT, trying to get like a Facebook, ad text, is going to get you a very vanilla result. That is not going to be a good result. But like the more, the more time you spend and the more intentionality in your prompting that you can give, that's really where you can extract a high amount of value with leveraging AI for this specifically for generating content. All right, so we're gonna move on to Q&A here in a second. I did just want to put a quick plug. So Boostpoint, a bit about like our brand, our company. This is what we do. Our mission is to be the best in the world at social media job advertising specifically. This is what we live and breathe. If you're interested in like a conversation, we have a software that automates a lot of this for TA teams, where it's a very plug and play solution, where it's like, hey, you can go from I want to experiment with social media job ads to like ads up and running and live, a very plug and play experience for that, where it's an end-to-end solution. Our platform, our team goes from, hey, you can basically send your job descriptions to ads live generating candidates. that's what our solution is. That's what our software empowers. So if you're interested in chatting with us about our solution, in the chat, I just threw in a link where you can schedule a time with our team to go over some of the details of what that could look like for your organization. Awesome. So we are going to dive into Q&A now. I got a couple questions that have already rolled in. Feel free, as I'm going through this, to add more questions there in the Q&A. All right, first one here. Do you have presentation or resources to share? Okay, so yeah, after this webinar, if you've attended or signed up, you will get an email follow-up with the presentation materials. So we can send that out. Got a question here about AI video. How much does it cost to put together an AI video like the nurse one? Cost is it's kind of like ChatGPT. It's like it's very cost effective. So I'll there's like to produce this video, it's a tool called heygen.com that again, it's kind of like the Wild West of like, hey, here it's available. Like to actually get a video that's usable, like you need to put a lot of intentionality into the prompts and like gearing it specifically to a video that's usable. But like as far as cost, like if you put in that effort, that energy, the cost is very, very little. I think their plans start at $20 a month or something like that. Another question about the video. Yeah, like that video example there, that's an example of video technology, AI video technology right there, where like that is based off of a photo avatar. So it's like a prompt creating, the avatar and then a script that's given to that avatar where they are then reading that script and producing that video. So like this technology specifically in AI is one of the like fastest advancing. Again, you need to be very like intentional in the way you use it because it's like AI video can go off the rails like really easy, but implemented in the right way, it can greatly reduce your cost to entry because like you're now you don't need to like hire a full video production team to create videos for your ads. I have another question here. I'll get to one or two more questions. Let me read this about targeting. Okay, so here's a question around targeting about like, hey, like we want to target like for an example, people that maybe are specifically at a hospital, maybe that work at a hospital, and things like that. So with Facebook, Instagram, you are limited by geography based off of like a 15-mile radius. So because it's a special ad category, like you can't go any smaller than that. So you need to think about like in that geography, you can't get as specific as like, hey, I know, my potential candidates work at this hospital and I want to show an ad that only shows to workers in that hospital. You can't get that specific. But again, think about it more like in a 15-mile radius, type of geography. And then think about, the things I talked about targeting there as far as like, okay, make sure your ad is explicit that you're hiring a certain type of person. And then you're using, your qualification forms to enhance the targeting during the learning phase. All right, I think that is all of the questions. Just double checking the Q&A there, making sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, I just got another question. Yeah, you missed the first 10, 15 minutes. No problem. We can send a recording out. We'll be sending that out to everyone that attended live here. All right, everybody. I think we will close it up with this. Thanks so much for spending some time with me here today. Again, if you are interested in getting more information of how, Boostpoint, we can help, you implement this strategy in a very plug and play way, feel free to go to boostpoint.com to schedule some time with us, or go to the link in the chat. Otherwise, thanks again, and hope everyone has a great rest of the week. We'll see ya.